I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought at night just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
So I said,
Hello.
never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols.
All right, hello, welcome to season 30, episode 22 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy,
My name is Adam.
I'm Nick.
and in today's episode, Forlorn Hope 22 asks for advice for players. We always talk about GMs and
out.
DMs. I know, but this is a good question.
This is awesome.
Uh-huh. Alavrant asks for clarification about how a specific safety tool works. And Friar Greg in Canada responds to his son Arlo's letter from a few episodes ago. Be careful, people might be cutting onions a little bit during that. You know. If you'd like to
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon.
yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to, if
Any
you'd like,
more and we'll get sued to the moon.
we'd
now
have to,
it's parody.
yeah,
Yep.
yep. We'd have to sing it better, I think, too.
Yeah. It was transformative. Thank you.
It was. Yes, absolutely. If you'd like to contribute a question or a topic to the show, email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We could use some emails. We're not in dire need, but, never turn it down.
Yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah. We've had some really great ones lately, too.
Yeah,
It's been
yeah.
amazing. Announcements. Verk is giving away a copy of Decima.
Now, what's Decima?
So,
I don't know. What's Decima with you?
Yeah! But it's an actual physical deck, which it's very rare. They are an endangered gaming species at the moment because I haven't found a publisher and
Yeah.
I haven't had any more printed.
Right.
Yeah, so I honestly haven't been trying that hard.
Oh.
Mostly just complaining on Twitter about how nobody will just ask to produce my
Yeah.
game without me actually talking to them.
Why can't I go on an adventure? I just need someone to show up and take me on an adventure.
Exactly. Where's my Gandalf for Decima? All right. It's also been the first couple weeks of school, so I've had very little time
Of
to do
course.
anything.
Oh, yeah. So if any of you out there know a publishing company.
Yeah. Well, you really have to know somebody
Yeah.
too, because I was looking around on websites and stuff, and like I found 2 that had submission links.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's just oh, okay. And then if you email, I know enough people at some of these companies who are yeah, I'm not supposed to push through any submissions, and it's just a whole thing. So you really have to have a connection.
Yeah.
And I think I might have connections, but I don't know. I know a lot of people on Twitter. And
How about if I just come visit you at work
Yeah.
and it'll just
Just
fall out of
show
my
up,
bag
hello?
Oops.
Yeah. Anyway, so
along
Verk is
with my contact information?
Right.
and a pitch deck of my game. Verk is giving away a copy. So all you have to do to win it is you join the Discord and you visit the giveaway channel. So it's really simple. You just click in there and all you have to do is read the directions and hit the button. It's very easy. And if you want to do that, it's at happyjacks.org/discord. And
This
this is-
contest is not sponsored by Golden Lasso Games, just Verdict Impulse to buy too many Decima decks.
Yes, it's absolutely true. So I have nothing to do with this. He's running this, and he's also one of the mods in Discord, so he has the power to do it.
Yeah.
But he bought too many decks of Decima, and now he's
Sure.
I'm gonna give it away.
Share the love. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much for.
Yes.
So again, just join the Discord, join the giveaway channel, and happyjacks.org/discord. Thank you, Verk. We've made a decision, an executive decision, about the Happy Jacks podcast. Each season will now be 25 episodes long. None of this madness where one is 12, one is 35, one is, 18. Oh, we're just going to randomly change. So we'll have a 25 episode long season. And then between seasons, we'll take 2 weeks off for me to spend time with my family on a Friday. And that's also gives us a chance if there's any big renovations we want to do to the studio. We've got 2 weeks to do it before we have to record a big show again.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Since I just learned about this right now myself, I did read the email 10 minutes ago, people. It's not like I walked in and suddenly got this change notice. But if there's 2 weeks in between each season, that means we're going to be means we are going to be thrown off of the whole year-long cycle. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're going to keep pushing out those 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm not saying cut into your family time or anything,
No, it's fine.
but
I figured 2 weeks gives us chances to do like big upgrades if we want to do them.
okay.
And really, it's like, okay, 2 weeks at a time. That gives me 2 Fridays to do stuff. But honestly, we were never going to stick to like actually getting 2 seasons in a year anyway.
Okay.
We were going to, I mean, there's going to be Fridays where, there's a storm and the internet doesn't work.
Yeah.
Oh, we're tired. Oh, we're sick. Oh, nobody's going to do it. Like, we've never been able to do like
Yeah.
52 consecutive, like, I don't know.
Right.
So I'm not that worried about it. We'll be off a little bit.
So this
Yeah.
sign over here that says it has been
Yes.
18 weeks since our last non-show.
I
Oh,
mean,
wait. Oh, I'm sorry. It's been 1 week since our last non-show.
yeah. I mean,
I
if
forgot
you,
about the con.
yeah. I mean, if you're talking about like podcasts, like Friday podcasts,
Yeah.
our track record is much better than the actual plays. I'm just gonna say.
That's true.
But-
Ooh.
Ooh, but yeah, I mean, we're also hoping to get back into doing like con shows next year and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that our schedule will get thrown off. 25 is a nice, like,
Yeah.
even feeling number. 2
Mhm.
weeks off. It's so
I
anyway.
like conchos. They're
Yeah.
sparkly and they make good
know.
little bits on leather.
Yes. So yes, 25 episodes long. That means we.
Conchos? Isn't that what they're called?
What, conchos?
Yeah. Isn't that the thing that like you add it on leather? It's like a circle and sometimes there's like a ribbon on it or something.
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, is it called a
Okay.
concho? I don't know.
I think so.
You've
Maybe I'm wrong, but
I
I
don't know.
figured
The 2 costumers in the room have just
I
learned
know,
a thing.
I
right?
figured like among customers and you were a horse person,
Right?
so I was like, oh,
Maybe.
yeah.
okay.
I mean,
You're
it's
talking
totally
about the
possible.
little round thing, and it's got 2 slots in the center, and
Yeah.
you do a leather loop in it.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it is called a concho.
I
I
don't-
don't know.
I
I
don't-
know what you're talking about, but I
don't-
didn't.
I don't have alternate information to dispute that. I'm saying like that may be a
Yeah.
thing. I just have never paid attention to the name of it.
Yeah.
all right. Whoever's on Google as you listen or / watch this, and or write us an email. You know what? Forget that. Write us an email and correct me, and Kimmy will make sure that she pulls it on a show that I'm at, so
Yes.
that I can
Yes.
feel the full shame of if I'm wrong.
I'm gonna ruin that. Like
Okay.
the chat room has confirmed you are correct.
Oh.
We learned a thing.
Good job, chat room.
Yes. So okay, yes.
Yeah.
Back to
Thanks, James V.
actually it's Erica Odd this time.
Oh, thanks, Erica.
So usually it's James V like right on top of it with the
The Google.
the
foo.
Google. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so good about it. So yeah, 25 episodes in a season and 2 weeks break, and then we'll start the next season. So that means this is episode 22. We've got 3 more episodes. We'll take a 2-week break, and then we will come back for season 31.
Yay.
And
Will it still be episode 19?
it will not. That's just on the notes. That's a joke because every week I forget to change on the notes the specific thing. And I didn't say 19, did I, a minute ago?
No.
Okay.
No,
said
you said it
22
right. You said it
earlier.
right.
I'm so used to it now, I just say the one that's at the top. Anyway, so this is a very interesting conversation about the notes that none of you can see.
Sorry, it's a little bit of inside baseball, and we're only teasing because we love each other.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Besides, she just forgot to change the number. It's not like she forgot to show up at the podcast at all.
Adam.
Your words.
That was me. That was me.
Adam.
I've been getting shit about it for 2 weeks, just so everybody knows.
But out of love.
But out of love, absolute
a
love.
little bit of anger, but also
Yeah,
love.
Right? Yeah. Usually I just like am late to everything. So I don't usually just completely forget to show up.
It's okay. It's only the show that I stepped in to save entirely and then was kind of depending on you to be there. So I shut down someone else who was going to be there. And it only ended up being the 2 of us because someone didn't show.
Oh.
That's all.
That's
You
all.
missed my mutiny, man.
I saw it. It was
My
very good.
mutiny.
Yeah. You did a great,
it.
great job.
You did a great job.
But yeah, no, seriously, you and Riley did a really great job.
Oh, thanks.
So maybe we don't need those 2-week breaks.
That's
Maybe
true.
We just
Yeah.
pull in Nick.
I
Do the
think
Nick show for 2 weeks.
Right? Yeah.
Starring Nick.
I
I'm doing
think
a little dance, people who are listening.
so. You were, I'd like a little bit incorrect about Booster Gold, but you and I can argue about that later.
Okay.
So
Oh,
That's fine.
this is a DC argument. Sorry.
So AC your way out of here.
Yeah. So I happen to really like Booster Gold. He's a total dick, but I just like
Yeah,
he owns
he's a
it.
fun character.
He
Yeah.
owns it, and I love his friendship with Blue Beetle.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's like so fun. Sorry, anyway, comics nerd. We're taking the longest time to start this episode. I
Right.
apologize. We are wandering. This is what happens when I start drinking this early before an
Yeah.
episode.
I'm just excited that it's not my fault.
Yes, we're just excited that you're here, Adam. All right.
Oh, God.
So let's start with mailbag number 1, please. Who wants to read this one?
I got it. I can do it. Hello, Kimmy and crew. In the interest of filling the mail that, ooh, maybe I don't. In the interest, we'll fix it in post, right? In the interest of filling the email queue, here's a topic I found thoughtful. I realize Happy Jacks is a GM's advice show, but I'm seeing more and more of these online, and what I'm seeing is a lack of advice for the other 4/5 of the table. What is some good advice to help people become better players? I'll list some of the most obvious to get the discussion going. Show up ready to play. The biggest complaint of GMs everywhere needs to be said. Be at the game prepared, with your character sheet, dice, and whatever else you can think that you need. If you're going to miss or be late, let people know as early as possible so they can adjust their plans. That's just common courtesy.
I feel personally attacked.
To be fair, this email was
be
written.
fair.
To be fair, this email was written long before that happened. You should still feel attacked, but just so you know.
Yeah, it's not like she pulled it just for you.
I know, right? Yeah. I wonder who chose the emails for this week. I love it so much.
Second, be engaged with the story. That doesn't mean you need to follow the rails, but you should know what is going on and not need to have things repeated to you. 3. Yes and applies to players too. Pick up some of the creative heavy lifting. Most GMs will thank you. 4. Think in terms of the party. Your character needs to have a reason to hang out with these murderers. And they need to have a reason not to leave your looted corpse at the side of the road. It's what my character would do is a good indicator that you are on the wrong track here. 5. Your background is helpful, but what is more helpful is the relationships your character has currently. Those relationships are what are going to be in the game. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. What other tips can you give people on the player sphere so that they can one day, with much practice, become as good as you? Forlorn Hope 22 in the Discord.
That's very, very kind.
Someone hasn't seen us be players.
No. This is actually a very good, like, comprehensive list.
Yeah, it really is. It hits most of the major points. I really like this topic because you're right. We do give a lot of GM advice, but I try to remind people that the GM is a player as well. And while they might have some additional responsibilities, they should not bear the entire burden of making sure everybody has fun. So I think it's really important for players to take some ownership of that fun and give the GM things to work with, give them things to play off of, engage with what they're putting out there. Otherwise, it's kind of like sex. If only one person is doing all the work, it's not going to be that fun of an orgy. So,
Want a t-shirt that says that?
right?
Yeah.
Yes, adding that to the Happy Jacks t-shirt.
Happy Jacks.
Nice.
The one I think that is missing here is share the spotlight. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with some gamers that I've seen is like when they have to be in every single conversation.
Oh, I'll go with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm there too. And I also said, it's just like sometimes it's okay.
Oh, can I roll?
Yeah.
Can I see that?
Right. It's sometimes nice to just sit back and just watch the other players have a scene. If two people are having a really good emotional interaction between their characters, like, you don't have to be in there. Like, enjoy it. And this is what, PBTA was very, it had that phrase of be a fan of the players.
Yeah.
Apocalypse World original did. And that's carried throughout PBTA games. But it's important advice for the other players too. Be a fan of the characters that you're watching and that you're interacting with. And, realize sometimes it's okay to let other people have something that your character doesn't know about, isn't necessarily involved with. And then, you might be an interesting way for that secret to come out later in a much more, in a more interesting way, in a way that drives the story forward as well. So that's the other one I would add to this.
That's a really big one.
Yeah.
That's really important.
So I have sort of a.
Let me just jump in here.
Hey, turnabout's fair play. First of all, I wanted to say that I really like number 5. Your background is helpful, but what is more helpful is the relationships your character has currently.
Yeah.
I know that I have a habit of, and a lot of people have a
Haba haba.
haba
Haba haba.
haba haba haba.
Haba 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 hey. Haba 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 hey.
I haven't been drinking much. I had like 2 sips of a hard seltzer, so this is just me on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
I have a habit of creating a backstory that doesn't really involve a lot of current players, or like I'm from a faraway land and my people blah 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 blah, or I don't go usually for the orphan route, but I don't usually have things that are about current people who I know and would interact with, and I think that's a really great idea. But what I wanted to talk about was a little bit of a corollary to number 4, think in terms of the party. I think it's really important for players to have a motivation.
Yeah.
Or rather for characters to have a motivation, and not just be a passive, I'm going to just do whatever sounds like the story is. And that can be as simple as, we got to this town and I want to check out who the best barber is, or who sells the best apples here.
Yeah.
They don't have to be big things, but there's something that make your character interesting and show that you're interested in the world, and that you have reasons why you're interacting with other people. If you don't really have any goals, other people are going to have goals, and you're just going to be kind of like, well, I guess I'll do that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if somebody comes up with something like that, and this is kind of the opposite of what I just said, but if in a way, but if somebody comes up with something like that, try to see if there's a reason your character might also be interested in that thing, whether it's just to support their friend, or whether it's something similar to that, like somebody's like, I want to like find the best apples, and like maybe you are maybe you just love gardening, and or you're a foodie. Like, find a reason why you might want to tag along with them if they would like you there, and that gives somebody who is coming up with that motivation, it gives them somebody to interact with, so that they don't feel like, well, my character is the only one who's interested in this thing that I've come up with. It's all a give and take, and being able to interact with other players and jump onto their backstories if they want you there, and help support them, or stay out when you need it, when it's needed. And that's a very important thing to be aware of when you're playing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're an assassin and you want to find who has the best apples, because the best way to deliver poison.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Find a way. Find a reason why that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of pushing back on what you said a little bit, Nick. You said, I make backstories that don't include the other players. I think I
didn't mean necessarily other players. I meant other people who live and exist in this world.
Right.
So let's say we're all from Beatlesburg. We're all from Beatlesburg, but all my backstory is from the town that I came from, Farmsville.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to have some things in Beatlesburg, like, oh, I met this grocer on the road, and he gave me a lift into town, and he and his 3 kids were very kind, and that gives the GM something that is like my character's a little bit invested in. If he wants to make sure that I actually go kill the kobold nest, he can say that they're one of the families in danger. There's things like that you give them to work with, or even just maybe they find something's missing from their cart and they storm after me later because I'm the only stranger they interacted with. Like, GM's going to use it however they're going to use it, but it gives them a tool that they can use.
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't think it's like necessarily a deal breaker, as long as like you do, because you do a great job of like coming up with these characters that may not have a bunch of connections, but you immediately start interacting and building relationships with the other PCs. So, like, you may be, like, the figurehead of a ship I don't know why.
Oh, this is really
This is
interesting
really
concept.
random, yeah. But like you've done such a great job, and this is from the AP cast-offs of weaving in with the players, even though you're like in some ways like an inanimate object. So I think that yes, for that is a really helpful thing, especially for the GM. But you can be like if you really want to go with the, I'm an orphan, I have no family, I have
Yeah.
no like okay. But again, like that ties back to what we were saying earlier. Like you have to be ready to engage with the PCs, and you do a great
Yeah.
job of that.
Yeah.
So I just and I realize you're saying that is a very good tip. I don't want to like negate your tip is very good, but I want to push back on it being a flaw with you because in some ways you are much more eager to interact with the other PCs than
Yeah.
people who make a bunch of connections with backstories with the PCs and then are still super focused on their own individual character drives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people, they have that tendency to do the whole like lone wolf orphan thing, and then they play as though that character actually wants to stay that way, and and in the most interesting stories of those types of characters, they actually don't want to stay that way.
They hate that.
They hate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do it to protect themselves, but
Right.
they have that character arc where they grow out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to play a lone wolf orphan kind of backstory, just that's totally fine. You can find ways to figure out why your character is going to stick along with these people anyway.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to come up with a reason why somebody who's alone all the time might want to stick with some others.
Yeah.
To look at comics real quick, the most interesting Wolverine stories, I think, are when he has a young sidekick that he's sort of being a protege for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, we know he's got this edgy backstory. Everyone I've ever known has died. Boo hoo.
Yeah.
I've been every single kind of warrior you could describe.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
stuff like that. But
Yeah.
but like, okay, those are fun for a little while. But the most interesting things are when he gets this interaction with Jubilee and has to like be a dad figure, or when he was at Kitty Pryde and he's like, okay, well, let me teach you some of the ropes of the things I know.
Yeah.
Those are more interesting stories.
Yeah, my favorite storyline with him is actually like after I haven't read it in years, so I forgot part of it. It's like after kind of like the apocalypse, and like he's there with a character named Armor, I believe that's who it was, and he's actually in a wheelchair at that point because like during part of the I don't want to give away too much of the story, like his leg bent. And it's made of adamantium. They don't have a way to fix it now.
Oh.
It's like that's not gonna fix itself. It's not a
Right.
thing. Like all the healing in the world isn't gonna make it bend back because it's metal. And so he is
Quest
like
for Magneto. Too.
Right.
yeah, exactly. But there's like a really interesting arc where like this whole story, which I think is not canon. I think it's like a side graphic
Maybe,
novel.
yeah.
But it was just like one of the most moving and amazing things to see him as a character who can't just kick the shit out of everybody and like is depending on someone who like is his protege or they develop that relation, but who is much younger than him and all those things. It's very, very good storyline. I don't remember the name of it, but it's really good. If you Google it, you find it.
He's far more interesting as a teammate and when he's interacting with people than he is as a lone wolf.
Right. And Eric is mentioning in the chat room, Han Solo is a great example of
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a lone wolf. I don't care about anybody except my best friend Chewie, who's also my friend. And
Right,
like
He's also a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also falls in love with like the first woman he meets.
Yeah.
Like
Takes this,
granted she's amazing,
Yeah.
but
Well,
takes this wet behind the ears farm kid and like, hey, kid, don't get cocky.
Yeah.
Like immediately
yeah.
forms a bond with him.
and the droids, like
yeah.
exactly.
so-
he is the
yeah.
most I mean when people talk about Star Wars characters with Harry Potter houses, and it's like Han Solo is the most Hufflepuff. He cannot be alone. He's terrified of being alone. But his reputation is like, oh, I'm alone all the time. I don't need anybody. And it's like, yes, of course you do. You cannot. He can't not be attached to people.
Yeah.
No matter how much he protests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think another thing that players need to watch out for is either not having enough flaws for their character or having too many.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a sweet spot in there when you've got these cool like disads or flaws that you can really lean into and make your character unique and fun. And then there's a point where it just gets to be obnoxious or kind of hard for the party. And it's like, oh, my character, no matter what, will always do this one thing. When they get upset, they'll scream their head off all the time. And then you're like trying to hide at the party and you're like, oh no, this is my thing I took. You're like, okay. So that's a form of spotlight stealing that
yeah.
like you were mentioning. But then there's also the opposite where you have perfect characters with no flaws
Yeah.
in any way, and everybody loves them. And I think both of those are kind of two sides of the same coin, where they want to be the center of attention too
Yeah.
much. And it's great. Like, I love making flawed characters.
Yeah.
And we all do. Like, that's the most fun to play. But there's a point where if you
I don't. All my characters are perfect.
perfect in every way.
Mhm.
But there becomes a
Sure.
point where having too many like character flaws starts becoming kind of a black hole of a story where everything keeps sucking back into you and your story because of
Right.
your character flaws.
Yeah.
Whether it's you getting angry all the time or whatever it is, you can do that well, but you have to make sure you're not piling on so many things that the story has to keep, the camera keeps having to turn back to you as you deal with all these flaws that you have.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In that vein, it's while having character flaws are interesting, it's also sometimes okay as a player to just suppress that aspect of the character
Mhm.
because you need to move the story along or
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
But also in that vein that you reminded me of is, as a player, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Do things that you're not good at. Like one of my favorite characters that I'm just recently stopped playing, it's D&D. He has a negative charisma modifier, but I play him talking to people all the time and trying to be friendly, walking into bars, and it's great because I know that he's not good at it, but he doesn't know he's not good at it, and it lets you have this interesting dynamic where it's not always, okay, Paladin, okay, Warlock, you guys go talk to him. You have this guy who, is festooned in monster hunting gear who walks up and is just like, hey, how are you doing? What do we drink in this town?
Yeah.
Those are great moments.
Yeah.
My
absolutely.
one of my most enjoyed characters that I've ever done was was in the Dragon Heist game that we did here on Happy Jacks, and I played Gan, who was very rambunctious and outgoing, but was kind of dumb and and put his foot in his mouth a lot, and it was a blast to play. And so our bard and our paladin who had the actual high charisma, and a warlock who also had actual high charisma. The three of them kept having to race to stop Yan from speaking when they met somebody new. It's like shh, and it was a lot of fun to have that interaction where they're like, oh my god, we let Yan talk, and that was but it was important to balance that, and I tried to never invoke that when it was something that we were really taking seriously.
Right.
And I think part of that goes back to being aware of what the other players at the game and including the GM want to see. You've all sat down to do this game together, talk about what you want, and if you want a raucous silly sitcom, then you're gonna make different decisions than if everybody's wanting to play like a crime procedural.
Yeah.
And so it's really, you want to look at that with everybody and talk that over with everybody else, and make sure when you use your character's flaws, you're using them to increase the tone or to explore the tone, as well as to move the story forward.
Absolutely. I think the greatest gift you can give other players at the table is the permission to fail. Because there's in so many gaming groups, and I've had this too, and there's points where try a wild thing, and this is not going to be true of all gaming groups. It's true of our gaming groups. It's true of my gaming philosophy. There will be games that some people will play D&D, where people don't want you to fail. They want you to perfect.
You have to be optimized.
Yeah, you got to be optimized.
Hit every turn.
You got your build. You only do the things that you've got a very good chance of succeeding at, especially in combat. So there are those players. So make sure you're not in that group if you do this. But like the absolute best thing I love, and this is one of the things I love most about our games, is I can try something super wild that I have very little chance of succeeding at, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fun, and people at the table think it's fun either way. If it succeeds, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, I can't believe that happened. That's amazing. And if it doesn't, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so much fun. I can't believe. And then like our, you know,
We're
our,
so screwed.
I know.
Right? Yeah.
our characters might be like, oh no, what's gonna happen? But we're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
So it's
And
so
it's
important.
fun.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you're in a group that doesn't have that culture of being okay to fail, what I would say is my advice would be start modeling it for them. And you don't have to necessarily convince them that it's okay to fail. They can see it in how you react, and that next time you roll a natural one, don't I'm so bad. Just have excitement about it. Like, just have that, oh my God, I'm so excited to see how horrible this is for me.
I don't remember a lot of the successes I had, but I can tell you about the time in D&D where trying to save a player character who was falling down a hole, I accidentally critted him with a javelin that I was trying to stick in the wall for him to grab onto, and I just rolled so poorly that happened. And that has stuck with me for 20 years, like at least. Just it was one of those moments where it was so atrociously bad
Yeah.
that it was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Our Hexbreakers game right now,
Uh-huh.
we are rolling like,
Oh my God, so bad.
well, so extreme. It's either a incredible over the top success or it's an absolute failure. Like none of our dice are doing like, you're okay at it. Like,
Right. No.
and it's so fun because in that game it's like, all right, I'm gonna try and change all of time and space with my cell phone magic. And okay, it's gonna be great or awful. And it's so much fun anytime because I'm not stressed out about trying weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I don't have a very high chance of succeeding, but everyone at the table is like, no matter what, it's going to be wild and fun.
Yeah.
So there's this great freedom there of really exploring what your character would do in certain moments rather than what the mechanics indicate you should do.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back on something that you said, Kimmy, a moment ago, and about tone.
Mhm.
It's important as a player to understand the tone and talk about the tone with the other players and with the game master.
Yeah.
Because you might come up with a character who's fantastic and amazing, but just not for this particular campaign or for this set of adventures that are going to happen.
Yeah.
I know I don't want this to turn into all of us talking about our characters because you're not here to listen to us talk about how awesome we are. But I
we
do
are
want
awesome.
to, but I do want to say, as an example, because just to let you know, we've all done this sort of stuff too. I had a friend who wanted to play a serious spooky Strahd game, and 3 of his 4 players decided that we were all going to be circus performers. And he yesed and it, and we thought it was okay, but honestly, it probably wasn't. And the fault there was probably twofold. We probably shouldn't have fallen in love with these circus characters. And he probably should have said, no, I'm trying to go for something spookier, which he had, like, he'd bought candles and he turned out the lights and he was really trying to do this stuff. But he went along with this goofy idea because I think he wanted us to be happy as well.
Yeah.
And it ended up being no one was kind of happy with what was going on. And I think that if one party or the other had said, like, okay, this is what I really want to do and got buy-in, everyone else sort of said, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Or said, well, this game isn't for me. Because that's one of the problems is that if you just want to be in a game and you don't care about what it is, you might sign up for things that you're not ready or that you don't like to do.
Yeah.
And be adaptable and open to changing your ideas as well. I also a Strahd game. I got invited to a Strahd game thinking it was going to be a fairly serious spooky affair, and then and I created like super emo, alcoholic, everybody's dead from the place where nothing lives anymore character, and then we started going around introducing our characters, and several of the others were quite ridiculous, and not like They
I'm
were
Sir Fizzlepants, the Pie Mancer.
yeah, they were just like, it was more like cartoon characters, you know. It was and they were all just a little bit silly, and I was like, oh, I'm the odd person out here. And so what I did was I changed my character to be just a little more laissez-faire, and it wasn't about like, oh, he's an alcoholic and he's sad and desperate. He's just like, he's bought into being emo, and I sort of played that up, and you know, and I took my serious backstory and turned it into somebody who compensates with um letting go of things as opposed to holding on to things. And it completely shifted my idea for the character in a lot of ways, but all the elements stayed the same, and I was able to do that fairly easy because I was more interested in playing the game than I was in living out the whatever character arc I had imagined I might have.
Yeah.
It sounds like you should have been in my game and I should have been in yours.
Yeah, very likely. Yeah, I was built for the. Yeah, I built my character for that. Like, let's do candles and drink from goblets, and yeah.
I think
And I made mine. Okay, I just have to say this because I'm so
Yeah.
happy with this idea, and I really want to do it again sometime.
uh-huh.
I made a priest of Barnum, and the deal with the priest of Barnum is that it's all made up. They don't really exist. And the way you get in on the con is you just announce that you are, and the next time you meet one, they go, "Yeah, you are,"
Yeah.
and that's the deal. It's entirely about shystering and conning and all that sort of
That's
stuff.
a
So
really
it's
great idea.
it was
Fun.
so much fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, wrong game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll come to that. Yeah, that communication is really important. And we talk a lot about how it's important for GMs to like communicate with players, but it's equally important for players to communicate with each other
Yeah.
and with the GM. I think there's always that pressure on a GM, like, oh, so and so and so and so aren't getting along. They have to like play like, you know, preschool teacher and like have that, you know, the critical conversations with them. Like, as a player, I think like you're adults for most of you, hopefully if you're listening to the show, you're an adult. But like deal
Fuck
with
piss,
it.
damn shit.
Yeah. Right. Like
Yeah.
don't put it on the like talk to the GM,
Right.
communicate. But like if you're having an issue with another player, like handle it yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, don't like get in a fucking fist fight. That's bullshit. But like deal with it yourself. Don't expect the GM to like necessarily be put in the place of like moderating between two different friends probably.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that's actually happening in the game. Like if it's something that's bothering you about another player, like talk to them yourself. Be the adults about it. And you need to advocate for yourself, but you need to make sure you're doing it respectfully.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also add on to that. Don't settle for toxic behavior, but keep in mind that some people that you might be more aware of yourself as a player than other players that you're gaming with, especially if it's people you don't know a lot. So give a little grace, and you know, and if nobody else is really modeling good behavior, well, you stick to modeling good behavior and you show how much fun it is. You know, when you allow yourself to fail, or your character doesn't like fight with the person that you personally don't get along with, you know, like find ways and reasons to be engaged and show good behavior, even if you're not seeing it from others. And there's a good chance that they may start to become more comfortable and also see like, well, so and so always has fun at the game and they're not afraid of failing, and they you know, switch up their character concept to kind of you know, meet the tone, and like it does have an impact. And you know, a lot of us, we have had really great gaming groups and we found each other, but we also have a lot of nightmare stories of our own that we came from, and you know, and and those can often end up but now I'm just starting to ramble.
That's okay.
Anyway, yeah, you get my point.
Yeah, but you can't always count on like being the example working.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and like there are times where you have to actually say like, hey, I want to play in a game where we're all ready to fail. Like where we're not worried about killing the monster in the fewest hits and the fastest way.
Yeah.
Things like that, and talking to people about it, because, you know, just being the example is always great. But
Yeah.
you'd be absolutely amazed how many people just don't pick up on that through no fault of their own.
Right.
Like they're not maliciously ignoring that you are very engaged and doing a
Yeah.
good job. Like they're just not aware. Most people are not very self-aware.
Yeah.
So there's times where you actually have to explicitly say that and
Yeah.
communicate in that way. And it's great to do upfront. Like we've talked many episodes about, pre-game agreements and things like that. As a player, you need to be actively participating in that.
Mm-hmm.
This is pre-game agreements are not a thing that a GM dictates like
Right.
the
It's not,
10
top, it's not
Yeah.
top down. We're all
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
this game to have an experience.
Yeah.
Everyone should be involved in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like, on stone tablets you bring down from a mountain and present to the players
Right.
permanently. Like
Yeah.
like you need to be like, okay, well no, this is what I want. So you need to like figure all that out before you start playing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know who ran the game where you all played circus performers, but
Oh, so good.
I know.
Sorry.
But that should have been something communicated ahead of time, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
before you go out shopping for a bunch of candles to create a spooky scene, be like, okay, I really want this to be like a serious, scary tone game, my friends.
Well, in all fairness, he did
Yeah.
talk about that ahead of time, and we did know, but we sort of wanted to have it be like, we came from this sort of ridiculous background, and you're going to take us into this kind of horror thing on there. So I think it was sort of a lack of communication on both sides,
Yeah.
and that wasn't something he wanted to do.
Right.
And we were, being the ringmaster and a juggler and a potion maker from this carnival, just didn't fit into the plans, and didn't there wasn't a way for us to merge into that, which I think we who made those characters all thought we were going to do.
Mhm.
Like we absolutely did not set out going like, ooh, he wants to do this dark and
Right.
spooky thing, and we're going to be fucking clowns over here, literally.
Yeah,
Um,
it wasn't malicious in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, like communication, like laying it all on the line up front, and you might get people like opting out of games that way, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
And don't leave this all up to the GM to bring up tone.
Yeah.
Either like when you sit down with the group for the first time, if the GM doesn't bring up the conversation, take a second and say, hey, what kind of tone are you looking for here? Is there something specific? And and then address that question to everyone at the table. Like, are we all on the same page on this?
Well, and even if it's something like, hey, is this anime? Is this cinematic? Is this a dark
Yeah.
and gritty sort of place? You don't even have to like have an in-depth discussion, but if they say, I'm really going for a noir vibe, well, you're not going to make someone who's a radical skateboarder.
Right.
That's not going to
Yeah.
work out real well.
Yeah.
I feel like there's
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Bring snacks and drinks.
Oh.
That's right.
Yes.
Your game master works very, very hard. They're spending a lot of thought, time, and energy, and even the ones who just
Mm-hmm.
wing it are working that whole time. So yeah, if you can make that a little bit easier by bringing up some snacks and drinks or offering something like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's always nice.
Yeah, well, not even just for the GM. Like everybody at the table, like
No,
for the
just
most
Yeah.
part.
GM.
Oh, just for the GM. Okay, yeah.
Screw those people.
Yeah.
Their payment is they get to have fun
Yeah.
in my world, my brilliant, perfect world.
My novel. I mean,
I mean,
yeah.
my railroad. I mean, wait.
Well,
Yes.
The one last thing I would say on this subject.
I mean, there's
is,
so many more things
I-
you could say.
so
We
many
could go
things,
on
yeah.
forever.
I would love to have more emails about this topic
Absolutely.
too. But there are a few articles and things out there that you can probably find on Google that have come from various sources about what kind of player you are. I think it was D&D 4th edition had a kind of breakdown of that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, of like, here's different types of players, and it's like the Chaos Gamer and the Rules Lawyer and the
Well, but also like people who really like exploration, people
Yeah.
who really like combat,
Ex-
people
yeah.
who really want to do social stuff.
Yeah. So you as a player can look at those kinds of things and sort of try and figure out like, what is my vibe? What kind of
Yes.
player am I? What do I like in a story and in a game? And make sure the other people at the table know that you understand this about yourself and this is what you're going to look for.
Yes.
And and that helps other people start that conversation, and they might have different things that they look for, but you can find common ground.
I think that's the first time anybody's recommended like the D&D game book on this podcast for anything but playing D&D.
I
But no,
know.
that's good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different games that have sections like that now, and
Yeah.
more of them are having safety tools and
Yeah.
actually agreements built into the actual
Yeah,
system
right.
and things like that. So that's really
Yeah,
helpful.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, Forlorn Hope 22, all of your ideas were great.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
ones we didn't touch on isn't because we don't think they were good. It was just that we started talking about other
Yeah.
stuff as well. But anyone who's interested in these topics, this is a great primer to begin with. And then if any of the ideas that we spoke about strike you, try and give those a try too.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if we're totally wrong, send us an email and take us to school about
Yeah.
why what we said was stupid.
Yeah.
Well,
And then we'll
they
mock you,
specifically
'cause this is our show, not
Yeah.
yours.
well, they specifically asked you for us to give more, not just
Yeah.
comment on theirs.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I would say I'd love to see some more questions regarding number 3, which was pick up some of the creative heavy lifting. I'd love to see people
Yeah.
writing in about like what do you do to help the GM? What do you do as a player to contribute to the story? Do you ask or do you just do it? What are some good practices you have? I think that's another great way to go with this topic.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely good. Cool.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to just say, in a place where it's logical for the one to be, you just say, I grabbed the fire extinguisher, instead of saying,
Right.
hey, is there a fire extinguisher here?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also made you have to stop and think about that
Right.
and derail whatever train of thought you have. Whereas I just go, we're in a lab, I grab the fire extinguisher.
Right.
Everyone goes, yeah, of course there's one.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Very good. And yeah, great topic. We should definitely try and like talk about it more.
Yeah.
It's so many people have questions about GMing because I wouldn't say it's not the more difficult job, but it is a more complicated job.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more, like there's just a lot more involved in it. So
And it seems kind
Yeah.
of intimidating.
yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
You're
Yeah.
kind of the game boss.
Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, players are just as important because if you don't have players, you're not going to be jamming anything.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, making everybody like have a better time is definitely a fantastic goal.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to do this one or do you want to do the sad one?
Do you want to? Because I think I was going to be doing number 3.
Okay, I will do this one.
If you want to.
All right. Hey, Cam and the rest of them. That's capitalized them. That's very like them or them or I don't know how to read it. Okay.
Them live.
Yeah, I was thinking of how to go into that there. I didn't bring my sunglasses.
A little background. In August 2019, I left my gaming group because of the GM's toxic style was getting worse.
Boo.
I played an alien superheroine, and the GM decided to heroine to give him and the GM decided that gave him permission to sexually harass her at every opportunity.
Fucker.
Yeah, I remember this email.
Fuck this
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
When we've read this email before.
No, I
No,
remember
the
the
original
original
email
one.
that was
Yeah.
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 Sorry. When I objected, he said that it was going forward with plot lines involved in my character were going to be bland if I played an attractive character that I should expect this sexist behavior.
Jiminy fuckness.
I wrote a letter to Happy Jacks with this with that chat transcript, which shocked Stu and the crew.
It was awful.
Yeah, I remember this. It was terrible.
Yeah.
After looking and failing to find a new or existing gaming group on and off for months, I'm going to try and form one of my own.
Woo.
So much has changed since I last joined a group. Now there are veils and X cards and such. All of these are good things. I want my players to feel comfortable. This would be an online-only group, Roll20 or Discord. What advice can you give someone trying to return to the hobby and avoid the many mistakes their ex-GM made? Where can I find the online forums of players that I know, the online forums for the players so I know which subjects are taboo? What happens if one player wants what we're going to finish reading this and then we're going to go through. I want to make sure we answer all these questions because these are really important.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make little arrows next to my notes.
Okay.
What happens if what one player wants winds up being an X card for another? Like if one character is homosexual and a player wants a game to be LGBTQ+IA plus free. Actually, in this case, the answer would be to dump the second player.
Yep.
But, 100%. But that's the only example I can think of right now. Speaking of which, is there a polite way to say that my virtual tabletop is LGBTQIA plus friendly and open to those who are not provided that they aren't prejudiced towards them? Or to put it another way, I would prefer my players who are closer to my political beliefs than not. Alivert. P.S. What is the best way to advertise to find players? Roll20, Facebook, Reddit, or something else I haven't considered?
Carrier pigeon, I've found to be very effective.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with
You get a lot of grognards, but
Yes.
you also meet some cool people
Yeah.
from around the world.
I'm actually going to start with the last question first because it will inform the rest of our answers.
Yeah.
The best way to find players is to join and find some sort of online community.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of them now. The Happy Jacks community is one I'm partial to for unknown reasons. I'm completely not biased. But like joining our Discord, there's a lot of amazing people there. A lot of people are running games regularly. A lot of people are in campaigns with each other. There's the Gauntlet community. There's like not a million. There's a lot of very safe, specifically where they state like these are our beliefs, these are our expectations of acceptance towards the community. That you can join and have like a built-in player base who also believe the same things that it seems like you do. So, for example, the Happy Jacks groups, like it's very specifically pro LGBTQIA plus.
Yeah.
Like we're like, if you're not this, you don't have to be, part of the queer community, but if you're anti-queer community, get the fuck out.
Yep.
Like very explicitly.
You don't have to be queer, but it helps. Happy Jacks.
Yeah.
Get another T-shirt.
I know. Now
I know.
I definitely want that one. Yeah.
Right. Someone write that down.
Yeah.
So that's the first step is and spend time in that community. Everyone has like people who drop in and do ads all the time but don't actually participate, and we have that in Happy Jacks too. Like we've got our promo channel and people come in and all they ever do is post their show, come watch me now. But there's so many people who are actually also part of the community, so when they post their promotion things, like people care. They may not be able to come watch at that moment, whether you're streaming or things like that, but they are there, they're trusted, people can vouch for them, people know that you like have those beliefs and can back it up. So that would be my number one thing. If you want to find players, if you want to do online games, find a community that is aligned with your beliefs and participate. Don't just drop in, hey, I'd like to run a game, and like never speak to anybody.
Right.
And it can be texting, but you have to. It's like the equivalent of going to your friendly local gaming store. Is like the first time you go there, people might be like, no, I don't want to play your game. But once you do it enough, you start getting to know the people there. The internet works the same way.
Yeah. It's it is
The internet's run by a guy named Bernie. I broke him. Yes.
Yeah. But is it fashion? Sorry, inside joke only with myself. So a lot of this like trying to find other groups is very much like dating in that sense of you've got to get out there, you've got to put in some effort of your own to and be clear about what you want, and that does go back to this. If you want a place that is free from homophobia and racism and and misogyny and all that, like make it clear, like just tell them like I don't want to play with assholes, and and say things like you can say things like like if you think being woke is a problem, please don't join my game. And the people who disagree on that front will just not join your game. They won't contact you. They won't follow up. So so just be upfront about it. Like I like a group who is accepting and friendly. And if you're not that, then don't join my group.
Okay, I'm just gonna get like with some internet wisdom, having been a woman on the internet for a very long time. I wouldn't put that in your ad or your pitch because that will make you a target. Yes. I would make like a little Google form and be like, hey, I'm running this game. I liked the thing about accepting, like that. Yeah. The last thing you said was great. Like put that in there. And then like in your questionnaire, just have some like general questions about like, hey,
Yeah.
Can't even think of how to phrase it specifically. Like, what are some causes that you support and what are some things you believe in, and like have check boxes or whatever. And then like that will be a little bit more true way to really select out people.
Yeah.
It may put people on edge, but at least they're one click away. So if on your Google form you're like, hey, I believe in this, and this, do you agree? if you do, please fill out the rest of this form. Surprisingly, this is like exactly what was on my Match.com profile when I met Sam. Like literally, it was like a quiz with like if you think this, and this, go ahead and fill out this quiz. We might be a good match. But because if you do, like, again, it does make you a target. If you put
Yeah.
that in there, like, people are there, they're gonna want to troll you. They will say they believe in that stuff and then just fuck with you in your first session because people on the internet are terrible.
Mhm.
But anyway, I
Sure.
do agree though that like
Yeah.
clarifying and just being upfront about what you believe.
Yeah.
Like for the most part, people are gonna self-select out if that's not something that they agree with.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes, so I'll be straight up here. I don't have any experience with this. Almost all my games have been with people I already knew or people who could vouch for me and vice versa, for online games as well. I have a very good friend who had a lot of difficulty finding a group that was supportive and accepting and worked out more than twice in terms of session wise. So I know that it's possible to do that. They also said that sometimes you have to, like, someone seems like a good fit and then isn't a good fit, and
Yeah.
maybe you need to go find another group if that's the person is that toxic, or ask that person to not be in the group anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You have to be ready to do that.
Yeah.
And it can be hard, but especially with online games, like just cut the fat sooner. Just,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and
Um,
you can also sorry.
You're good.
Go ahead. Oh, with if you're doing sort of an intake form, like if you're gonna have a you can have a section like what are some of your lines and veils, and you can sort of pre-fill those with like here's some of mine, and like I'm not gonna ever have a game that where we think racism is cool, like and various things like that where you can sort of hint to people like this is already in here and this is set. We're not going to play this game of like, is it okay?
Yeah. And it's always a little bit of a warning sign if they're with in lines and veils and like nothing, everything's fine. You're like,
yeah.
it's a little. I mean, there can be great people who also are fine with everything, but almost everybody I know has something that they'd
Yeah.
rather not play with as part of the theme.
Yeah.
So
I very rarely add anything to those, but usually by the time I look, the big things that are concerns for me have already been addressed.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I need to put in, clowns or spiders or whatever. 'cause
Yeah.
in a game, nothing like that really bugs me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a very big difference between all the things I would usually mark are already marked,
Uh-huh.
and nothing bothers me.
Yes,
No holds
right.
barred, anything goes. You're like, okay,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
okay,
There's a game for you. It's called Fatal.
Yeah.
I'm not running that. Go have a good time.
yeah, nah, you lived your best life far away from me.
Yeah.
So I think we've kind of slid into the question about online forums.
Mhm.
Yes,
But all the ones that I've seen have been like a Google Doc that someone put together, like a spreadsheet, and you just fill in a cell with
Yeah.
things that are either hard lines you don't want in the game at all, or veils. They're okay to exist, but they kind of have to take place off screen or just be referenced, sort of things.
Mhm.
And honestly, it's such a ubiquitous tool. I can't see really using anything else. I bet there
Mhm.
probably are some quote professional versions of that out there, but any document you have
Yeah.
that clearly defines this is not okay for me in this manner are probably going to work.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's one that's like pre-made and it's a Google form and it's got like check boxes and each and there's a whole bunch of things listed and then there's blank ones you can fill in your own too. And then it's got like green, like I'm fine with it, or green means I would love to include this. So like romance is one of the things. So if you want to have romance in the game, you'd click green for that. There's a yellow, which I believe is like like if
It's
it's
like
in
fade
the
to black. Kinda,
Yeah. Well, and also
ours-
like I'm okay with it being in the game, but I'm not sure I want that to happen to my character.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I'm fine with other people having romances between their characters. I'm not interested in that in mine.
Like
Yeah.
that's honestly one of my things is
Yeah.
I don't usually feel comfortable having romance in the game. I don't mind if it's in the game. I just generally don't want to be involved in it. Not always,
Yeah.
but a lot of times that's just how it is.
I'm that way a lot too. And then there's red, which is I please don't include this in the game. And there's just a pre-made list, which is really helpful I find sometimes, because there's things on there that I might not have thought about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, now they see that. Yeah, I really don't want that in there either. Or I'm okay with that. Or it's a great way of communicating, hey, I'm playing this game. I would love to have a romance storyline.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really helpful tool. I think that one was my Monte Cook Games. It's just for free out there.
Mhm.
They have a whole safety toolkit that you can go and download for free. It's really nicely, professionally made. So I highly recommend that. If you just Google it, I don't know the thing off my head, but it's Monte Cook Games safety toolkit. Like, boom, it'll be the first thing that's there. And I believe that Google, I think it's a Google Doc. It might be Google
Sheet
Google
or something.
Sheets, thank you.
Forms. Yeah.
or something. It's not a form. It's
Oh,
one of
okay.
the other two. But it's really great, and I highly, highly suggest. Like, Google is so great for this because you can send out an anonymous link to it.
Yeah.
So that way people can go in and fill things in without their name being associated with it.
Mm.
Because sometimes people are nervous, especially if you're playing with a gaming group for the first time, about being like, hey, I really don't want, this to be in the game, because that can be very personal and
Yeah.
telling and give like vulnerability. And
Mhm.
while that's something you can build up to as a gaming group, people may not want to like jump off, right? Like with the things they absolutely hate the most in the whole world is not the best get to know you
Yeah.
tool. So if you send out an anonymous link where everyone with the link can still edit, then like there's not that pressure, and everyone just sees the same text kind of appearing, and
Yeah.
there's not that pressure there.
Two things about that. One, make sure the document stays open, because maybe something comes up later, or
Yes.
someone
Mhm.
didn't think about this thing, but it actually is traumatic for them. They just have not, they didn't imagine it could ever come up, or they might have repressed it up until now and then suddenly realize, oh yeah, I really don't want this in the game. Make sure that document is a living document so that people can review back to it as well. Another piece of advice: if anyone is shitty about something that you said, bounce.
Yeah.
Or if they're shitty, like, talk to people and maybe you can make that person leave. But like, if the GM or anyone says, well, I guess we're not going to be including any X because someone marked it down,
Oh, that's
get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't like, whatever the game is, it's not something that you want to be involved in if people are going to make you feel bad about the things that you don't want.
Yeah. And people should, and players, especially if you're the GM, should not be trying to talk other people into being okay with things.
Yeah.
Like, for me, like, something I'm very open about right now, especially, is like child harm.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of, I know it's been 2.5 years, but I'm still kind of a new mom. Like, my child is, because of the COVID, is just now wandering out into the world. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
She had a fever for like the first time this week,
Aw.
and I was like, it was like 99.2. I was pathetic. Okay, I admit this. But
still,
it's
your
still,
baby.
yeah, and she like was sad, and then I still gave her popsicles, a lot of popsicles.
Yeah.
But
So she's going to fake having a fever a lot now.
like, she walks, Mama, do you want a popsicle? Just like, in case I want one.
Right.
Yeah,
You know?
right?
And then if you're having one, it'd be rude not to share one
She's
with.
so, I'm like, you 2.5, because I feel like you're like manipulating me older than that, but whatever. But like child harm is something that's like I'm very susceptible to right now.
Yeah.
Like, no one should be pushing back like, well, what if this is in the game, and
Yeah.
like you'll know that this, like, well,
Just
it's
a little child
yeah,
harm.
it's
like,
not
yeah.
your kid. Like, we'll make sure it's someone who looks nothing like your kid. Like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
that
like-
just sounds that's
Right?
worse.
Yeah.
I mean, like, shit like this happens.
Yeah.
And like, we were recently in a Curse of Strahd game, which is not the Curse of Strahd game that you were talking about
Right,
earlier.
right.
It's a different one. But like, this is my first time I've ever played Curse of Strahd, and the GM did such a great job of clearly, like, I knew after the fact that he had to really rework a whole big chunk of the story so that there would be no child harm in it. At the time playing, I had no idea, because he did it without any questions asked. He didn't quite ask me like, well, what kinds of child harm might you be okay with?
I was in that one, but it's a different one than the one that
Yeah.
I was talking
No, no,
about.
yeah.
Circus
No, yeah,
characters.
you are in that one, but it wasn't the circus character one. So there should not be any pushback or negotiation about things people have marked as
Yeah.
completely off limits. Like,
He
it's
actually did do a lot of work, having been familiar with some of the source material.
so hard. Like, I looked at it later because I was super curious, and like, because I'm fine reading it. It's just not something I want to role play in.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I was like so impressed and thankful. I was like, that was really cool. Like, so much work went into redoing that whole thing.
Have
which
you
is
told him?
fantastic. I
I
did.
bet-
I
okay.
did tell him.
Okay.
I like, at the time, like a little while later. At the time, I was like, "Thank you so much. I get the feeling that you did a lot of work." But like later on, I was like, "Oh wow, that was like a lot of work." so there shouldn't be any pushback, and so just do not allow that. And that ties in with what your question about the X card. It does not matter what kind of story someone wants if it offends or insults someone else. Like, if you want, if there are people out there who, okay, if you for some reason really wanted to do a game about child harm, like that should not be
First of all, go
yeah,
get some therapy.
right. Like that's like all right, whatever. I can see like where you wanted a child in danger to save or something maybe, but that should not your the character's aspirations and what you want for a fictional character should not outweigh someone else's personal comfort and feeling safe and happy. Like if you want your superhero character to save a kid who's like in an abusive situation, okay. That's a game that you can play, hopefully thoughtfully, and I'm not going to be in that game with you.
Right.
So if you are in a game with me and I'm X carding something like that, the X card trumps everything. Like absolutely everything. Like that is not a no questions asked situation. If someone X cards something, you as the GM can clarify later. Like sometimes it's hard in play when someone X cards something, you just steer away from it. You might want to privately like clarify later, like, okay, I thought you were X carding this. Did I get that right? You know, and again, that it's just accepted. Like this is the hunt. Like push the red button, stop. We're out. Like parachute out of the story of that, like that type of story.
Right. And don't let anyone do anything like well, I need to have this child be in danger for the plot, so is it okay if I tell you that they will be fine?
Yeah.
Like no matter what's going to happen, but I need them to go through this trauma in the first place.
Yeah.
Something like that is just them saying, hey, my wanting to be shitty is worth more than your comfort
Yeah.
and ability to regulate what things are acceptable to you.
Yeah, and it's totally not okay. And they make sure that nobody has to explain themselves.
Oh yeah, very much.
Yeah, like if someone's like, well, I really want to save this kid in this abusive relationship, like why aren't you okay with that? Like that's not
Especially like that, because
Yeah.
that then becomes a flip of like, why don't you want to save this kid in an abusive relationship?
Right.
And it's like, it's not that I don't want to save a kid, it's that I don't want to deal with the trauma that might bring up.
Yeah, and there's a million reasons. And like, for example, like my reason for that is I work in a job where I regularly like deal with actual real kids in abusive relationships. That is not something I want to role play and play at in my free
Yeah.
time. So I should not, I'm saying that like as an example, because everybody here knows I'm a teacher. Hopefully, if you're in the podcast and you didn't know I was a teacher, I talk about being a teacher a lot, so I figured you do. But like, and that's part of being a teacher in public schools, especially. So that is part of my daily life. No one should be put on the spot, especially in a new group that you're forming online, to have to explain, because a lot of time it has to do with very serious trauma themselves, fears, sometimes things you can't help, like me being a paranoid mom has nothing to do with like anything else. Like and I shouldn't have to rationalize that to somebody else, because they may not understand, and it's not
If
something
someone
that needs to be
hasn't
done.
had a similar experience, it can be really difficult to understand why that is triggering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just try and take it as the like, well, okay, I don't get it, but I don't have to get it. It's not my business
Yeah.
about why that's not acceptable.
Right. And there are so many storylines that you can explore without doing that. If as a GM, and I know a little while ago I gave the advice like you shouldn't make the GM the moderator between your problems.
Except when you should.
Except when the GM should know. Like unfortunately that kind of is your job as the GM, especially with things about what's going to be included in your story and what isn't. So there are times where you're going to be like, hey, they X carded that. We're changing the storyline. That's not part of it anymore. You're going to have to like put your foot down in defense of your other players. Because they may not be in a place emotionally where they're ready to defend themselves when they're trying to deal with that pushback.
or explain why,
Yeah, absolutely. They should never let anybody demand a reason for why they've X carded something.
Yeah.
If they choose to share, sometimes people choose to share and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But no one should ever have to explain or be asked or expected to explain why they've X carded something.
And I would also say as a you don't have to be the GM to help moderate that discussion if needed. You know, if you're playing, if you're a PC, if you're a character player, you know, you can also step in and say, hey, guys, that was a line, or that was a veil that we had. Like,
Absolutely.
can, you know, you don't need to know who put it in if you don't, but and you don't need to identify them at the table. Just say you can help. You as a player can also bring up those kinds of things and help moderate and guide the discussion. You don't just
Absolutely.
leave it up to the GM.
Yeah, and that's why those documents
Yeah.
are so important. I think the one flaw, I think it's the Monte Cook Games one that I was suggesting. It has that great fill out thing, but I think the one flaw about it is you then send it into the GM, and then the
Oh.
GM has them all. The
Mm.
one thing I like about the shared ones, like the ones that are on Google Docs,
Yeah.
are that everybody sees it. And
Mhm.
especially if you filled out anonymously, everybody sees all the lines and everybody sees all the veils.
Yeah.
If you're doing a thing with it as the GM where you like, you know, taking everyone's and making a list, that's great. But everyone should have access to the lines and veils list that they can reference later, that are printed out, something. And that's just so much work for you. I had another good. Chat was talking about something very interesting that was important, I think, to bring up. A lot of times people see, and we were talking about comic books a minute ago, like comic books, movies, TV shows, these are touchstones that we often kind of replicate and play in tabletop RPGs. They can kind of explore these topics a little bit more freely because they are a scripted show. They're a scripted format. So they can have situations of abuse that are written and looked over by many, many editors and by consultants, hopefully, that so that they are done in a way that is respectful and things like that. Sometimes they fail miserably at this too, but it's different. It's not always different, but there's a little bit of a different element to a pre-written story that includes elements versus people role playing and cosplay. Cosplaying is not the right word, but it's the way that the modern world is using the word cosplaying, like as whether they're a marginalized person or abuse situations or things like that, when it's not something that they themselves have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an important point. So thank you, chat.
Yeah.
Oh, just a slight note of that. I have a friend, huge Star Wars fan, huge Star Wars nerd, loved it forever. But he was a new parent. He wasn't even that much that really of a new parent. Like he'd had 2 kids by then and everything like that. But the scene where Anakin walks into the nursery, he got up, walked out, and has not come back to the franchise ever since then.
Yeah.
That he was just like, I could not deal with that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's why I haven't watched Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't give spoilers because I haven't watched any of it, but the very first scene in the first show, people warned me like, hey, lots of child harm and violence, don't, in the
Kimmy,
first,
it's actually fine, and I think that you should just get over it and
just
go
get over
watch
it.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least just tell us why that bothers you.
Yeah.
So much.
Can you tell me exactly why? Like, can you in this court of our tabletop RPG convince the jury why we should not play a game that personally
Yeah.
makes you uncomfortable and sad?
Yeah.
And see.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone recently described it as judging people's trauma.
Yeah.
You don't have a right to judge other people's trauma, and there's nothing wrong with just being nice. And if somebody tells you this bothers me, just don't do it. Let them have that. It's very unlikely to actually hurt you in any way. You know? But I mean, just keep in mind, in that one question about like, what if somebody's like, well, I don't want any queers in my game. Like that is different than saying I don't want any homophobia in my game because it brings up bad memories, right? There's that other saying or quotation, your freedoms end where my rights begin, and it's one thing to disagree about like, well, I don't like, I don't want to talk about sex at all in the game. That's very different than I don't want anybody who's not the same sexual orientation that I find acceptable,
Yeah.
or
But
Yeah.
but I really want to play Captain Curbstomp, the transphobic Titan. That was all that I wanted to play this superhero game for.
I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, it's true though. People and people often right now there's a large segment of the world that is like, if you stop me from my hate, you're oppressing me, and
Yeah.
it's not a legitimate argument. There's do not buy that argument. Do not allow that argument. That is just an asshole who is mad that they can't be an asshole anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And I would be remiss in my duties, and chat keeps saying I'm supposed to invite you if you're. I think you're already there, but like Happy Jack's
Oh, yeah.
Discord, like it's a really great place. We actually have a complete server, the JackerCon Discord.
mhm.
I think if you go to happyjacks.org/JC, there's still a link there. And even though JackerCon is over, people are using that as a server just to run games. So a lot of times what they're doing in the
It's never over. It's always in our hearts.
it's always in our hearts, yes. So a lot of people are like forming games in the Happy Jacks Discord, and then they're just playing on the JackerCon server because it's a little less crowded. There's a lot less people there, and there's specific rooms for it. We've got bots and stuff to make it easy. So
Gotcha.
And assholes don't last long in the Happy Jacks community, so
they
No,
do
we
not.
have our own assholes for justice.
Yes. We're assholes, but just in different ways. So yeah, happyjacks.org/Discord. All right. Mailbag number 3.
Right.
How are you now?
How are you now?
Good.
Good and you.
Yeah.
Good.
Wait.
Can't complain.
Too much fun. Thank you for that Letterkenny moment.
Very good.
Friar Gray. Okay. All right. Leave it to a teenager to holler a message to his dad across 4 time zones when 5 steps to the next room would have sufficed.
Okay, you need backstory. If you haven't listened to this, you need to go back a few episodes. And
Is that Arlo?
yeah, and Arlo did like an amazing. It's really cool because it's like one of our first second generation listeners, and we have a couple of them, and like Emily Stork's daughter and stuff like that. So we have like the second generation of Happy Jackers that is emerging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're running games and they're playing and they're amazing. And I played with Arlo in in Alice is Missing in JackerCon,
Oh, cool.
and amazing, so good. But Arlo wrote in like a message to his dad, and it was super sweet, and like almost everybody cried. So you have to go back and listen to that. But this is a reply to that. So we're basically just passing. We're like messenger pigeons at this point.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to clarify. I did not suggest the listener map, but it was during your reading of my last email, Listening from the North Pole, that Kimmy first brought up the concept. That was all you. I'm just happy to be part of it.
You're the inspiration.
But then again, teenagers. Now there's a skit.
Oh, do you want someone else to play?
Yeah,
Yes.
why don't you play?
Okay.
Why don't you play Arlo?
Okay. Hey, Dad, have you caught up on Happy Jacks?
No, I've got 1.5 years of Python programming podcast episodes to get through.
You should get at them Happy Jacks. You might hear something interesting.
Like what?
I don't know. You tell me.
What am I looking for, eh? 'Cause they're
Something.
from Canada. Real subtle, kid. Sometimes I wish you weren't so fucking awkward. I'm having so much fun with this email. Arlo could have paid Sean Connery, Jack Nicholson, and Tom Hanks to deliver the same message as a singing telegram with 3-part harmony, and it would still be the same message. I love you too, buddy, and you can Google telegrams, kid. They existed. I have him as a son, and for that, I'm always proud of him. I'm only proud of myself for the fact that he still has both of his eyes. I must be doing something right. Oh, it is taste in music. All me. But he keeps telling me that he loves me and that he's grateful for me. Whose kid says that? Is that weird? Yeah, it's a little weird.
But sweet.
The fact that we get to play together, whether it's guitars, TTRPGs, board games, card games, or even on our Valheim server, it just makes an already awesome relationship with him that much more fun. He's better than pancakes with ice cream, whipped cream, blueberries, and maple syrup. Shut up. I'm not crying. You're crying.
I am crying. Like,
Damn, that's a lot of sugar. Fuck diabetes. Every day I'm grateful that he's here with me. Yeah, he's a great kid. I love him to pieces, and I can't wait to embarrass the fuck out of him in public. That's
Well,
when you know you're loved.
We've already started that
and
process.
ta-da.
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm off to drink a pint of beer and smother some tears. Thanks for putting up with us and keeping the show going. Keep your sticks on the ice. Au revoir, French, or Aikava, the Scots Gaelic. Hopefully we got that close enough.
We were
Didn't butcher
Googling that
too
before
much.
the show.
Totally good did it. It's spelled Oidhche space Mhath, and it's pronounced Aikava.
Yeah, not Oida Hichi Machach, which I was doing the Klingon version earlier.
You've never experienced Shakespeare until you've heard it in the original Klingon.
By the way, I hate that because the Scottish play I could see as being originally Klingon, but Hamlet, no. Hamlet is horrible for that because it's all about someone who's not acting honorably and who doesn't take any action.
Well, yeah, in the Klingon Hamlet is the bad guy.
I mean,
It's a
That's
cautionary
also
tale.
in
that's
the
the
English
normal
Hamlet.
version too. That's why I'm thinking it's like the perfect Klingon play because all these Klingons are looking at this dishonorable one.
Yeah.
It might be.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, I might be coming around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Later's Friar Greg, Canada. P.S. Fun fact: over 7,000 people speak Gaelic in Canada in one form or another.
And 25,000 people speak Klingon. So who's the winner here?
P.P.S. Arlo took his handle from Guthrie. Yes, rock
Yep.
on.
Nice.
Who was responsible for the Alice's Restaurant Massacre, all 20 minutes of it. He wasn't proud or tired. He was one of my heroes. Yes.
I hear you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Anything you want. Yeah, it's true. It is very true.
I'm going to pretend there's a
Was there a
PPPS
question?
that says drink.
Yes,
Yes.
drink.
Drink.
Okay.
Woohoo.
So I'm not sure if there was a question, but if there is,
There's not.
Yeah.
It was just to share.
Yeah. So Arlo, clean your room.
Do your chores, listen to your
yeah.
dad.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love this. And I.
And dad,
Yeah.
try and give him a little bit of slack because, sometimes teenagers need that.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I just really hope that Laura Lynn has 2 eyes when she gets to this age. She's. Yeah. And like.
Greg has set a high bar here.
I know.
A kid with 2 eyes and who plays RPGs.
I know. And the guitar.
And yeah.
And
right?
he's on a Valheim server with you. That's so cool.
Yeah. I know. It's well, and you know what I would.
That's like a lot of good parenting right there. That's
Yeah.
a high bar.
Yeah. And he still likes you, apparently.
I only have you guys on the Valheim server.
know.
Like,
We tried to play on Valheim, but you built a fucking cathedral, and we were all so embarrassed we quit the game.
that's actually a true story.
Kimmy came onto our Valheim server. She's like, "What's this? I'm gonna play around with it. I'll figure it out." And like and then all of a sudden, like we all like weren't able to play for like a couple of days, and we come back, and Kimmy has this grand chapel with a like open floor plan and a fire pit.
The windows are the best, like the big stained glass windows.
big
They were
stained
very
glass.
cool.
It is ridiculous.
I'm living in a hut where I die of smoke inhalation half the
Right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to look at that.
Right.
You know what? Here, that's what I think about your cathedral.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, to be fair, I didn't
To
really
be
do.
fair.
To be fair, I didn't really do anything else but design houses in the game.
It's true. Yeah. She's like, I don't have any armor.
Yeah. Like,
But she had an amazing house.
any interest in doing this? Can I just build another house? I chopped a lot of wood
Yeah.
and mined a lot of ore to build houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just have to say that I didn't sleep. I built the house for days. But and that they're both in the chat tonight and they're being very
Oh.
sweet.
Hey,
Yeah. So
Yeah. That's very awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
I hope Laura Lynn grows up to be another second generation Happy
Yeah.
Jackser. I don't know if she will, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
No pressure, kid. But she already loves my dice collection,
Nice.
Yeah.
and she hasn't swallowed one yet. So I'm doing.
Wow.
I'm doing
That's-
good at the parenting too. See,
Yeah.
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 no
Yeah.
choking by the 2-year-old.
Yeah.
That's important.
That plus 2 eyes, you will have succeeded.
And
Yeah.
and a costumes that do not involve hot glue in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't say that.
Oh.
Anyway,
I guess we need to have a talk about tone.
yeah. I think that's a good way to say it. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Legit. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you so much for writing in. Everybody who wrote in, we appreciate it, and we love these
Thank you,
heartwarming
thank you.
stories
Yeah.
from the community too. Like you don't always have to write in questions or horror stories. Like
Yeah.
these are
It's
also
nice to have a good
fantastic.
karmic balance
Yeah.
of just, heartwarming stories as opposed to horror stories.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No.
Yes. All right. So, tonight I'm going to end the show. Sorry, I just had to triple
okay.
check. What?
Yada da da da
Yeah,
yada
did
da
that,
da
sorry.
da. While technical stuff happens in
Yeah.
the background.
I was like, I didn't
Draw a
know.
little sign.
I forgot to write down the song that we are ending the show with tonight. So, thank you for joining us for season 30, episode 22 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
My name is Adam.
I'm Nick.
And thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. Don't forget that, we have a giveaway right now happening on the Happy Jacks Discord, happyjacks.org/Discord. Thank you, Burke, for running that. That's fantastic. Other things we have to announce. We took off from some games this last weekend because of the convention we were at, which went really well, by the way.
Oh, good. I'm
It
really
was-
looking forward to coming back.
Yeah,
So,
it went really well. I felt very safe, and like I had my mask. I did take my filter, but Nick very nicely helped me drag it around the con.
No.
And people were very great and accepting, and it felt very safe and really nice. Personal update, not a Happy Jacks update. Starscape beta version 2 is now out with a bunch of updates and things like that. So if you have version 1 or 1.1 or 1.1c, update. So it's free. You can go download it again.
1.1 final dot for real this time dot
Like,
text.
oh crap, someone just found another typo that ruins everything. I have to update at 1 a.m. here. Yeah, no, but go check it out. Redid the way the trust bars work, a whole bunch of neat things, rewrote a bunch of the rules, redid the normal playbook with a bunch of stuff thanks to Nick's playing.
Ooh.
Like I had like this like genius, like not genius, it may not be terrible, but like suddenly like it clicked like how to fix the playbook from all the feedback you gave me. So I think I might have. I want to show it to you. I'm
Cool.
very excited. But yes, you can go download that now. If you go to goldenlassogames.com/starscape, there's links there. It's free to download or pay what you will, and you get all the updates after that, which includes the final game when it's actually dropped on itch. Like if you pay $2 now, you get the whole thing later. So it's worthwhile. All right. Anything else?
I just want to say one quick thing about the con. It was great seeing people, meeting people in person who I only knew from online,
Yes.
and welcome new people to our little Happy Jacks family. So,
Yeah.
if you were there and you're listening, it was very great to meet you. And if you were there and you're not listening, it doesn't matter what I say anyway.
But yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to start building up our presence to about the level it was before.
Okay.
Great.
I don't think we're going to do the live games anymore because I think all of us missed that, just playing with a big group of people rather than streaming, because we stream here all the time.
Yeah.
So playing with new people and that con experience is really something that I feel like we've missed.
Mhm.
We will still be doing the panel show on Saturday nights eventually when we get that part built back up, which is why I need 2
Yeah.
weeks.
2
2 weeks.
Wee.
Yes.
My understanding is that there is a box of the con show stuff, and it is nothing but snakes.
Yeah, it was put together and it has not been open since the last time we did a live con show,
Oh no.
which is why I was like, yeah, I'm not going to try and get that organized in the next 2 weeks.
You mean it has like pre-2020 air? Oh, huff that.
Amazing, right? Yeah. Who knows? I mean, the last con we did was February 2020.
Yeah.
So it was like we'd all heard rumors, and like I was like 8 months pregnant, and like going back to my hotel, like I had my outside of the room closed and inside of the room closed because we all knew COVID was a thing, but we weren't sure what it was, and like we
Right.
just heard rumors.
Ah,
And
those
we were
days.
right by LAX, so I was like Lysoling myself down, like when I got to the hotel room, because that was a good idea.
Right.
At the time, it seemed fine, but whatever.
It's all those horse tranquilizers she took.
Yeah, man,
And the dewormer.
you're not even supposed to hold that stuff without gloves. I'm just gonna be clear, like having actually used it for its applicable purpose, not safe to ingest. Not safe.
No.
Do not ingest it. You're not even supposed to hold it without gloves on. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
So
How about injecting bleach in my veins? Is that okay? Because I heard
Also-
that's fine.
also
be.
bad. Also bad.
Yeah, don't try that at home, please.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you. We're gonna wrap this up now. We love you all. We're ending tonight with a song by our friends at Super Mad NES. They are a fantastic kind of rock group that does covers of they like a metal group that does covers of video game tracks.
Oh, fun.
So this one is from Final Fantasy IV, I believe, and they're fantastic. And Ryan Iyengar, who plays their guitar, is a good friend of the show. Abria's significant other, also helping me with a whole bunch of stuff for my band right now.
So cool.
Thank you so much. So we will see you next time. Love you all. See you next Friday.
Bye.
Bye.